Good morning and welcome to the Virtual Village Hall. In today's session, we're going to be talking about planting up our pots, our containers, our window boxes for what will hopefully be a long, hot summer. I'm Rachel, and normally you'll find me here on the Virtual Village Hall getting covered in ink and sharing with you printmaking tips. But I'm also a keen gardener and I've worked my allotment for about 16 years now. And I absolutely love pots and containers for the garden, because the great thing is you can arrange them, move them around to create a different feature. You can use them to hide a bit in your garden that you'd rather not see, or you can even just pop them in the borders where you've maybe got a little bit of it's looking a bit sparse, to add an injection of colour. So I've got some plants here. There's so many different ways and ideas that you can pot up plants, containers. But I'm just going to give you a few hints and tips when you're looking around the garden centre, hopefully that you can have them in the back of your mind so that you can put them to practice in your own gardens. So first of all, we're going to talk about pots and the containers that you might like to use. So you've got a few options. First, you have your plastic pots, nice and lightweight, and they don't cost much too. These are great for, the containers that you're going to be using. Size and shape really is up to you, up to personal preference and also colour. So they're your plastic pots. Make sure they've got good drainage holes. You can also use nice metal pots. I really like a galvanised pot. Again, make sure it's got good drainage holes. Just a little tip with these, make sure that where you position them isn't in direct sunlight, because they can get really, really hot, and you can imagine those roots of your beautiful plants will frazzle. So just bear that in mind if you're using metal pots. A personal favourite of mine is the good old terracotta pot. So again, these come in lots of different shapes and sizes. They are a little bit heavier, a little bit more expensive, but I think they are worth the investment. Many of them you can get that are frost resistant now. So at one time you would have to make sure that they were either wrapped up if you were leaving them outside, or put them away in the shed each year. But some are actually frost resistant, so can be kept out all year round. And this is the one that I'm going to be using today to plant up. This is the first pot that I'm going to be planting up today for my summer pot collection. Another thing with terracotta or stone pots is that you can paint them as well. So if you don't particularly like sort of the brown, you want it really bright, or you want to go for like a white kind of Mediterranean look, then these can be painted as well. So that's our pots talked about. What about our compost? So I would suggest using a multi-purpose peat-free compost that you can buy from the nurseries. Sometimes these already have what's it called, the kind of plant feed in them already, so you're going to be set for sort of a good 4 weeks before you have to start feeding with liquid plant feed your pots. So look out for multi-purpose, peat-free, and also possibly with some feed in it. So that's our compost. So what about colours? Now, I'm not here to tell you what to do really colour-wise, because I think, as the phrase goes, you do you. Do what you enjoy, the colours that you enjoy. Maybe you like the cool kind of blues and the silvery foliage. Maybe you like the kind of the vibrant reds and yellows and oranges, the magenta pinks. So go with that. Maybe you just want every single colour under the rainbow. It's entirely up to you. These are your pots. They're for you to enjoy when you're sitting outside, maybe for breakfast, lunch, maybe in the evening, enjoying a drink, for you to look at and to enjoy and care for. So really go with what makes you happy. That would be my suggestion on colours. But if you go to the garden centre and you just get really kind of sort of disorientated and just don't know what to choose, then I've got a couple of little tips for you. A good place to start is the colour wheel. So you've probably seen these, you probably use them at school, you've probably seen them sort of with, various places. But if you look, you'll see that on a colour wheel, which is basically just the colours of the rainbow pretty much, you've got the colours that are harmonious. They tend to stay together. So we've got oranges, reds, yellows. Then we've got pinks, purples and blues. And then we can go round into the greens and then back up into the yellows. So those are going to be your harmonious colours. Now, if you want a real contrast, then go for colours that are opposite in the colour wheel. So for example, we've got yellow and purple, which I'm going to be using today. You've got your blues and your oranges and your reds. So those are going to give you a real contrast. Also, when you're planting up, think about the colour of the foliage. The foliage creates a beautiful foil. When you think of a bouquet, lots of it is actually foliage, because that really makes all of your flowers pop. So we've got some silver foliage, we've got some light green, kind of almost acid green foliage, and then we've got some darker foliage to use as well. So talking of foliage, here's where you can save a little bit of money. So what I've got to show you, I've got some lavender. That's quite a nice one to use as foliage. And what's great with this is that it smells gorgeous. It's great for the pollinators when it flowers. And also it's something that you can use for a couple of seasons in your window box or your pot. And the other thing is, at the end, when you've finished it in your pots, it can go in the garden. So really it's going to last for more than one season, and then you can enjoy it afterwards. So how about herbs for pots as well? That's a great one. This, I've got some rosemary here. This is actually some rosemary that I used in my summer pots, my summer window boxes this year. So I've taken it out, I've given it a little bit of a trim. I'm going to give it a good feed, and I'm going to be reusing that for another container. But the herbs you can get from the supermarket, you know, the living herbs near your fruit and veg aisle, those are perfect. So think about herbs like the sort of the Mediterranean herbs with the more coarse leaves. So rosemary, sage, thyme is a good one, and also not with the coarse leaves, but chives work really well too, and again great for pollinators when they flower. You've also got your ivy. That's a great one for your foliage, so that's going to hang down and sprawl over, and again it can be used from year to year, season to season, for your window boxes, so you can really save money on that one too. Tell me what you like to use in your window boxes. Everyone's different, and I would love to hear in the comments, have you planted up your window boxes yet? Are you going to the garden centre this week? What are you looking out for? What do you normally enjoy looking at in your window boxes and your pots and containers and planting up? Okay, so I said we would be planting up today, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So I'm just going to move some of these bits to one side, and then we can get going. Oh, my ivy's come attached. Bear with me 2 seconds. Now, if you're a fan of gardener Sarah Raven, then you may know this little phrase. And the phrase is thriller, filler and spiller. And all that means is that you're concentrating on 3 types of plants. So we've got our thriller, which is our main, possibly your most colourful plant. And I normally spend a little bit more, I like to spend a little bit more money on that one. So that's your thriller. You've got your filler, which are your smaller plants, which will complement it either foliage wise or colour wise, which will fill the spaces. And then finally you've got your spiller. So that's the plant that trails, that spills over, and there are so many beautiful foliages that you can get from that. You can get from this acid green to your dark ivies, and also your variegated neptia as well. So when you plant, I always suggest putting some crocks or some large stones just over the planting hole, not blocking the planting hole, because that will mean that makes sure that over the season that the soil in the pot doesn't become all compacted around that hole, and then you end up with a waterlogged pot. So that's very important, because we want to keep these pots well moist, but we need to make sure that they don't get waterlogged. Then add your compost. I'm going to roll my sleeves up for this one. And I'm not going to fill it right to the top. And as I put it in, I'm just very carefully firming it down, not really hard, but just with my fingertips. I'd suggest using new compost each time you plant every season, because over time the compost can become sort of more dense, and you can lose that aeration, because all of your lovely roots from your plants need oxygen. So make sure that you use new compost. Also, compost from previous years can have pests and diseases within it. Vine weevils, for example, will very, very quickly decimate your new plants as they sadly eat the roots. So I would suggest new compost. Now, I've not filled it right up to the top. As you can see, I've left a good space, because I still need to put my plants in, which is going to take up a little bit more space. And also, I don't want it right up to the top, because over the season I'm going to need to water this. And I don't want it right up to the top, so when I put the water on, it just falls off the side. I want the water to go down and go so those roots can drink it all up. So I'm going to start with my thriller plant, which is a petunia. This particular one's called Petunia Capello Hello in yellow. And it's a bush type petunia rather than the trailing. And I'm just going to very gently squeeze the pot to loosen it. And just looking at that, it's got a good root system. So it's not pot bound, but it's got a good root system to be able to keep on growing when I put it in the pot. So I'm just going to tease those roots very slightly. Now, I do sometimes just do that very quickly at the garden centre, just to double check that it's not pot bound and that it's not a new plant that's just being put in. If you go to a reputable garden centre, then they should be well established plants. So I've just made a hole, and I'm going to put that in, firm it in. Then I'm going to add my filler. Now, looking back to our colour chart, I actually bought something that I don't normally do when I was at the garden centre. I bought a ready-made, as it were, mix of blues and purples. Now, I don't normally do that. I normally like to choose individual plants, but I thought this was really good. Every single plant in here I liked. Plus, it worked out about just about £1 a plant, which I thought was very good. And I'll probably use this over 2 containers. So I was really pleased with this. What I did make sure I did, though, is just double check every single plant was healthy. Because quite a lot of these were packed in and they were close together, some of them had started to go a bit mildewy and some weren't looking very healthy, I must admit. So just make sure when you do pick your plants up from a nursery that they've got no pests or diseases on them, there's no mildew, and they are looking really healthy. And I quite liked what really caught my eye was this one, this kind of swan daisy, because it's got the very, very pale lilac, but it's also got in the centre this yellow. It's almost sort of a yellowy green. I don't know if you can see that well, but that goes in really well with my thriller plant and also with my spiller. So there's a really good, although it's contrasting, it's all balancing out in my pot. So I'm going to add the swan daisy. So again, just very gently, making sure that I don't crush any of the other plants. squeeze that out. Good root system. Actually, with this one, it's quite good because you can always see the roots. You don't have to do the take it out in the garden centre. Make another hole. I might just need to take a little bit more compost out. Put that in. And this is going to grow taller than this, so I'm quite happy that that's still at the back. And I've also got some blue lobelia in this pot that I'd like to, that's going to go in as well. So I'll put that to the side. And then finally, I've got my spiller. So let's just see what that looks like. I wonder if I need one or two. I think I'm going to go for one now, and then I will put it out and see what it looks like. See if I'm happy with that where I want it on my patio, and then I can always add another one if I need to. Slightly deeper hole. So fan that in. And then at the moment it's looking like I need a little bit of height at the back. I'm hoping that this will grow according to the ticket. This is going to grow to about 30 centimetres. So this should eventually be up about this high. This will stay a similar level, and then this will cascade, just continue to cascade with very small yellow flowers, and the lobelia won't get much higher either. I'm always a little bit sad when I first plant up my pots because I think, you know, they don't look too effective, but give it 2 or 3 weeks, the gorgeous sunshine that no doubt we're going to get over the next week, good amount of water, and these will really just be abundant and filling out, and lots of flowers. So what about aftercare then? So you're going to you need to make sure that your pots are regularly watered. Don't let the soil dry out too much. And also you'll want to deadhead your plants. So all that means is when the flower dies, so to keep your pots looking nice, but also to encourage them to keep on flowering, when the flower dies, all you need to do, and I'll show you actually with a live flower, look, I've knocked this one off anyway, just with your thumb and forefinger, or just with a small pair of scissors, just using your nail, just take off up to, I normally go up to the next leaf because that means that you haven't got all these little sticks popping out. Up to the next leaf, take the flower head off, and that will keep your pots and containers looking beautiful, and they will flower all season. Also with the watering, I would suggest that you feed this with a liquid feed. Just make sure, you'll be able to see on the instructions on the liquid feed that you buy, just make sure of the quantities to use, and you'll probably need to feed them about once every 2 weeks. And I've just noticed a little bit of soil missing at the back, so I'm just going to put that in, because you want to make sure that your plants are well in. I just need to double check at the front as well if I've got any gaps, slight gap there. And then just one more at the back. That's it. Firm that all in. And then talking of watering, I've got my watering can. So I'm just going to water at the roots, water those in, and then go and put that in a nice sunny spot. And that will give me joy for the rest of the season. So thank you very much for joining me this morning. I hope that's inspired you to have a go at doing your own pots. Go to your garden centres, keep those hints and tips in mind when choosing your plants, but above all, just enjoy it. You know, it's such an enjoyable thing just to go into the garden, go into nature. it's recommended, you know, just less than 20 minutes a day in nature can really help our mental health. And if you ask my husband, then you'll know that he'll tell you that I'm a much nicer person and a much happier person if I've done some gardening or sort of done something outside. So, you know, I really would encourage you to get out in the garden, get out into nature and enjoy. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you again next time. Take care. Thank you. Bye.